Hi,
Hello,
Tzili.
everybody. Hey, Tzip.
Hi.
Tamar Sofer.
Sofer. Wow, is the name.
Tamar
Wow.
Sofer is in charge of the adult education in the Tel Aviv Museum. Tel Aviv Museum is celebrating his 90th birthday this year, and it's considered one of the best museums all over the world,
Right.
no, Tamar?
Yes.
Yes, it's been in the list of the top 100 most visited museums for, I think this is the third year or fourth year. And yes, we're a good museum.
Yeah.
So one of the celebrations for the museums, Tzipi and I visited the museum, and you had a great event with 4 short films that were created especially for the museum's birthday.
And trace the history
And
of the
yes,
museum.
so one movie was about the original, like the birth of the museum, and one movie was about the gift from Peggy Guggenheim, who gave a big gift to the museum many years ago.
Through what looks like a lover, no? We'll talk about it later.
And then one
And he was not like Robert Redford.
One
Nice
was
to say.
devoted to the foyer, and
Right.
one was devoted for the outside of the
Right.
museum.
Which is a great idea, right?
Tamari, how did you get to this? What did you do? Tell us. Take us a little
And the
bit
foyer and
hand
the
by
outside.
hand.
Well, the project started with our museum director, Tanya Cohen-Uzieli, who had this idea. She was the one who brought up our 90th birthday celebration. I think it was one of the first things she did when she was appointed the director of the museum. She gathered all of us, all of our the heads of departments, and she said, "Let's start thinking about this." This was about 2-3 years prior to our 90th birthday, and she had some ideas about how she thought would be a good way to celebrate our 90th birthday, because we'll probably talk about it in a minute, but the Tel Aviv Museum of Art is very intertwined with its history, with the history of the Israeli state, and so many things happened here, which the general public doesn't always know about, and these are things she really wanted to talk about. And between all the many projects and things that Tanya wanted to bring to light, she thought of having a collaboration with filmmakers. Her initial idea wasn't this project, the project that it became. Her initial idea was just having some sort of reaching out to maybe a documentarist or someone in the field of cinema, and having a documentary or even a feature film made about the museum. That was the initial idea, but it was very clear from the get-go that we needed some kind of partners, because we know how to do exhibitions, we know how to talk about art. We don't know how to talk about cinema. We don't know how to make cinema. So she did a few things, Tanya. The first things she did was create a team. She put me in charge from the museum. She's been in charge all along, obviously. She was very, very much involved in this project. But I was the liaison and the manager from the museum for this project. We reached out to someone from the world of cinema, Nomi Michaeli, who was the head of the Israeli Academia for Cinema. I'm not sure if I'm translating it, probably not translating it correctly, sorry. And Nomi and I began, and Tanya, we began searching for a partner in the cinematic world, in the world of film. This was all during COVID, all during Corona, so everything was done via Zoom. We had a few Zoom meetings with a few cinema funds in Israel. I have to say that the first fund we met with, after them, we met with, they were the best. So they really understood us. We really understood them. We had a very good click with them. This was the Israeli, the Israeli Cinema and Television Fund. Yes. And which were amazing partners to work with.
They're amazing.
And they brought forward the idea, because it was always going to be tricky to have a documentary film about the museum, which the museum wants to pay for. It's very dangerous that it becomes how do you say,
It's not a documentary.
It didn't interest us to have a commissioned film. This isn't what we were searching. We really did want to offer a variety of views for the museum, and not something which was perceived as some kind of promo for the museum. This didn't interest anybody. So once we joined forces with the Israeli Cinema and Television Fund, they started doing things by the book for the Ministry of Culture in Israel. They get their money from there. They gave a big part of the money to fund this project. The museum gave, the city of Tel Aviv, municipality of Tel Aviv gave. So we kind of started gathering our funds to understand what we can do with them. And they suggested the idea of reaching out to the general public of film directors and filmmakers and offering them 1 year, opening up our museum and seeing what comes out of it, which was such an interesting way to go about things. We started out with having a publication in the newspaper and social media, calling directors to come and see. We had a few meetings here open to the public, and anyone who wanted could come and listen. And we gave them a few pointers of things we find interesting. And it was about, I think, maybe 2 or 3 months of tens of directors with little cameras and ideas going through our archives and meeting our curators and different people from the museum. And it's always very, very interesting to see behind the scenes in institutions like museums and like these canonic institutions. And so I think I must have met at this point during these months maybe 150 directors with potential ideas, and then they had to submit something to the fund, and they had to submit it. In the end, the submission is very, very difficult because they had to submit how do you say taqsir? I'm sorry about my English.
Budget and synopsis.
They had to submit a budget and synopsis.
Who are the people involved and what their idea.
Exactly. They had to
director statement.
The crew, everything. And I think we got maybe 60 offers, concrete offers with budgets and everything.
Wow.
And then we started to the work of choosing out of the 60 offers.
And
which,
the fund, which
you guys made the choice of these 4 films that we finally saw.
It's a bit more complicated than that, because this is Dorit Inbar. So you know Dorit?
Dorit Inbar is amazing.
Very well.
She's the head of the fund.
She's amazing. I mean, the working with her and her fund. These are people really amazing partners we found there.
And also very knowledgeable, very professional.
So professional, so knowledgeable, so she just does the work, and she does it. Her and all her staff. She has an amazing staff.
Yes.
And they have to go by the rules of the Ministry of Culture. Right. Meaning, it's not that they choose. They have anonymous lectors. They submit all the films to anonymous lectors. The lectors are lectors chosen by the Ministry of Culture. They all have something to do with cinema. They're either directors or people in the academia or anything like that, but they all do with cinema. And each film is seen by at least 2 lectors, and then they add up the points, and they each choose. I think they have to choose between them 20 films. So the first part was the lectors chose out of the 50 or 60, 20 films. Afterwards, we got to see all the presentations and all the ideas, even those that the lectors didn't choose. And we think they made the right choices, that we agreed with the lectures. But out of the 20, we then had, again, this was all done via Zoom. We had a meeting, and by this point, we already understood that it wasn't enough, this duo, it wasn't enough the museum and the cinema fund. We needed a third participant in this triangle, and we needed a production company. So by this point, we'd already chosen our production company. We worked with Shula and Dana Fakot, Shula Spiegel, who was and her
yeah.
So many.
Again, the best producers in town. I really say that we had such a good experience with them.
Right.
So professional.
Tamar, I would like to talk about the films.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about each film.
So the 4 films chosen, we had 4 films, and it was interesting because 2 were historical and 2 were based on places, on physical spaces. The first film called A Tale Beginning with 3 Rooms is a film by Arnon Goldfinger. Arnon Goldfinger is, I think, probably out of all the directors we worked with, the most well-known and the most accomplished. He's a important teacher. He has films, which is...
Yeah.
Sorry?
He was really very major part in the Israeli television. You know.
Yes, you know, he's an important player in the Israeli film and television scene, and he his film is very his style. He has a very unique, identifiable style. It's always narrated by him. It's always his voiceover. It's always in he's talking as if about himself. This film deals with Meir Dizengoff.
Yes.
Meir Dizengoff was the first mayor of Tel Aviv, and Meir Dizengoff, partly because his wife, who had passed away, Tzina. Sorry?
Tzina. We were born in Tzina. We grew up in Tzina Square.
In her.
We are the Tzina girls. One tall, one short. You can guess who is it.
But thank God.
She loved art. Tzina loved art. And Meir Dizengoff decided he wanted to have a museum in Tel Aviv, because that's what a new city needs. It needs culture, it needs a museum. He didn't have any funds. He didn't understand anything about art. So he decided to open the museum in his attic. And in his attic, he bought what he thought was good art. He bought a reproduction of Michelangelo's David, a reproduction of Donatello's David, he bought all these like souvenirs.
But what, yeah.
This was the museum.
Like I do. I don't have money, so I have a reproduction of Picasso.
Yes, he has the best works. These are masterpieces. So this is and this was in 1932. Exactly at the same time, in a different place in Germany, Dr. Karl Schwarz, who was a very important Jewish artistic scholar, had just opened the Jewish Museum in Berlin. He had opened it, and I think maybe 3 weeks later, the Nazis came into power, and he understood he has nothing to look for in Berlin anymore. He understood very quickly he needs to run away. And he reached out. He didn't know Dizengoff, but he reached out because a friend of a friend had told him. He reached out, and he said, maybe you're looking for someone who understands something in art? And Dizengoff said, yes, come along. We just opened a museum. So Dr. Karl Schwarz took himself with all his very German family, came to Tel Aviv, which was not Tel Aviv of today, in 1932, and went to visit the museum, and I think probably got very frightened, because this was not a museum. This was the attic in a private home of someone who understands absolutely nothing.
Imagine him coming in with his suit and probably butterfly tie. Like my father.
Yeah.
Right. And they, by the way, he and everybody I knew from Berlin, like my father, never changed. They
never changed.
Berliner.
I think if you see the film, that's probably the tragedy. I think that's maybe the most touching part of the film. Karl Schwarz, he continued to make the museum into a museum, start collecting real works of art. He reached out to his friends in Germany who really wanted to try to get away from the war and couldn't, but he got their collections, and he started making a museum. The museum we have today is based on the collections he collected. But
maybe some of the collectors didn't survive. Right?
Most of the collectors didn't survive. Most of the collectors wrote to him and telling him, we have these collections, please take them, save them. Can you maybe please save us as well? And he couldn't save them, but he could save the collections. This was something which was very heartbreaking to him. It was it was obviously a very difficult time everywhere, in Europe especially, but also here in Israel. But the thing was after the Second World War, And after the Israeli state not yet declared, after started to become more of a nationality, he was pushed. They tried to push him out, but at some point, I think he understood that he wasn't relevant anymore.
Right.
He understood that
Very
this is a
sad.
new place, and
want
the
to tell you,
connections.
I just want to tell you, what do you mean not relevant? I did a research for a film about the Berliners, and I had a meeting with somebody from Berlin in a coffee house in Ebbingvirol, street. It's near the Rabin Square, Rabin. I came, he was sitting with the back to the street, holding the Jerusalem Post or New York Times, as I told you, dressed, with
a suit
and a butterfly tie. He was completely out. Nothing to do with what surrounded him. It was very touching. And he was like 70, right?
But he laid out the foundation of the Tel
Yes.
Aviv Museum. And
Not only did he lay down the foundation, the film, and Alon's film ends with this. A few years later, in 1948, the Israeli state was declared. We're the only state in the world which was ever declared from the museum. The Declaration of Independence, when you see Ben Gurion saying the words, it's from the Tel Aviv Museum of Art.
Right.
And the works in the background are all works which he brought to the museum. They're still hanging in our gallery
Jewish art
today.
mainly, right? Mainly
Mhm.
Jewish artists.
Yes,
it's only
but
the,
all German.
What?
German or European, mainly
No,
Jewish, not
no,
only,
no,
but mainly Jewish.
Yeah. Right.
So it's a very
Amazing
touching.
film.
It really is an amazing film. So that's the first film in our 4 short films. As I said, we have 2 films about people or directors and 2 films about places. The second film is about a place, our main foyer in the museum. This building, which I'm sitting in now in a very shabby office, but the galleries and the public spaces are much nicer. And this building is the third or fourth building of the museum, because the museum was born in the Dizengoff's house, and then moved to Helena Rubinstein. In the middle, there was a small place in Dubnov Street, and the third building was the main wing of the museum today, the Paulson wing, which is the main building, which was opened in the beginning of the 70s. And the entrance to the museum has a very, very big foyer. Now, this foyer is the entrance to the museum. You have to go through it when you walk into the museum. And since the 70s up until today, it's had so many changes. And the second film, called The Foyer, filmed by Ronnie Katzenelson and Michal Uminer, is about the foyer, about its changes. And I think what's interesting in it for me is the fact that it's not a gallery space, but it is a space where art hangs. And it is also a place where people meet and they decide where to go. And it's kind of an everything place. Each grand opening for any exhibition is always held there. Whenever we have our annual gala or celebration for anything, that's the space. It's a space which holds both art, and there were times when it had exhibitions, not just the permanent collections, but also exhibitions, and many different types of events. And on a very regular basis, it's where the educational groups meet. You have children sitting there. You have the elderly going to a guided tour. Everything happens there.
And you have Liechtenstein. And you have Liechtenstein?
Yeah, the permanent works of art there is a huge work by Roy Lichtenstein.
It was a fantastic story, how it started and how
Yeah.
it came and how he, painted it. And it's like really almost dominating the space in
You
a way.
made it a special case.
Yeah, it was.
Two out of the 3 permanent works there, the 2 most important, prominent, dominant ones are the very big Liechtenstein painting, and we have a very big painting, installation by I forgot the name. Yaakov Agam, sorry. Yaakov Agam. So the both artists.
Are you signed for life?
Sorry?
Did you sign with him that it will stay there for life? Forever?
That's a
For
question that you'll
eternity?
ask.
For eternity?
He says that that's what was signed with him, but the courts decided differently.
Ah.
We're not. We don't have to. It's an issue, that work of art. I think Tanya is interviewed in that film in context to what she thinks should happen there next. Also, Tanya and both Tanya and Mira. Mira Lapidot, our head curator. This is the film that they're both interviewed in, and I think they both have the same kind of thought about the future, not maybe taking anything down from the things that are there, but maybe adding. There are no representations of women there,
Right.
of Mizrahi Jews, only like very white.
What is the third
Ashkenazi
installation? You
straight
said
men.
there are three. You said there are three.
The third one is a work by Danny Caravan.
Right.
Not Danny Caravan's most important work, and it's. I think that maybe if they were to take something down, it would probably be that, because Danny Caravan maybe put something instead by Danny Caravan, but not. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not the director.
Right.
And yeah, that's the second one.
It's very nice that it's ongoing.
Why did you do the outside?
The fourth museum, the Museum Plaza, it's called the Museum Plaza, was actually something which right at the get-go was very, very important to Tanya and to Nomi, my co-manager for this project. The trying to understand, we really search for a film which talks about is the museum a lone island, or does it have any connection or communication with the outside world? The film, The Museum Plaza, is a very different.
More than not the outside world, but specifically, you know,
Yes.
to the Israeli population with everything that's connected to it.
It's important
The museum
to mention that in
physically.
Tel Aviv, people use this space for demonstrations, for gathering, not only for shows or for art.
Right.
And it's a very active space.
Right.
It's a very active cultural community with all the buildings around it, with the library and with the theater and with the opera house. And
across the street is the army.
Yeah. No, the Museum Plaza is called, it's called the Museum Plaza, but it's a plaza which connects on one side the museum, on another side a library, on the third side are a court, the courts, and on the fourth side the army. So you have there a kind of symbiosis which doesn't make any sense except if you live in Israel.
For demonstrations exactly that takes place now.
It's scary times.
I don't know, I have to think about it, but it's almost the struggle and the conflict that we witness now. With the government.
It's exactly
the new government. It's really
it's a kind of area which I think a kind of a heterotopy which can never take place anywhere but here, because the connection between the army, the courts, the museum, the books, the library, the spoken word, the written word, really doesn't make any sense, these four, and here it does. And here it kind of works, which is why this plaza is a place for so many demonstrations from all of the political
and also it's a very big space and it can hold all the people. We don't have many.
But it's really embodied, you know, so much of our values, which are now threatened.
Yeah.
When you say our values, whose values do you mean?
Wait. Let's decide. We were not born today, and what's happening today, maybe as Tzili said before, you know, it started before, much before, but we still thought that this country is based on values, right? And about institutions that we don't want to touch because...
No, but Tamar is right, because the values are different.
Maybe those are your values and my values and Tzili's values, but I don't think it's the values of most of the population.
I do believe that except maybe the ultra-religious, we share a lot of values with the religious what used to be Mafdal, you know, the more
We're going to have to wait and see. I don't know. These are scary times. I'm
very
afraid.
scary. Very scary. And you know, you may have an exhibition or a painting like we saw in another small museum there on Ramat Gan, that people will think not only take down, but if you don't, we're just going to close it or you know, ask
Well,
you to
that's what
take
happened. The
it.
Ramat Gan Museum is de facto
Yes,
closed.
that's what happened.
No artist in Israel will no real artist will exhibit there. Never. No, not until
Never be
the
open
law is changed.
for a real exhibition. Not in the next few years. No, I don't think
I
so.
don't know.
The only way is if they manage to pass laws here, which will take out any option for political people to meddle in artistic decisions. Unless that
artists will
happens,
keep
no one
going.
will in the Ramat Gan Museum.
Artists need to go forward. They will not stop. Look what they did to Yar Garbuz. It was a complete lynch. He's working like mad. You know, it's unbelievable how many he produced since then. He's exhibited. He's not exhibited. The need to create is like the passion is there.
What's going on now can be a very good soil for a lot of work, you know, for artists,
Yes.
for writers, for...
Someone just said that. I don't remember who just said that he thinks that this political climate is the best climate for
very good
real
soil for
yes.
art.
But I don't know. I would rather, like, you know, gay people have rights than artists.
But it will be interesting now to bring back Dorit Inbar. I think she was the one who picked up the new film that the government now asking them to give back the money. You know, the film that
did
they
not
did
know
in the
that.
West. Oh yeah, they did. You know, they did the. You know, I
They
don't know.
covered a film about 4 teenager
Teenager
Palestinian
Palestinian
that
were
were
caught.
arrested because
Right.
they threw stones at the soldiers.
And the way they arrested them, you know, small kids.
And now the new government wants the producer to give back the money to the government.
Right. So although it's a documentary, it's not a manipulative, you know, whatever. But so what I'm saying is that some artists will do self-censorship. It's already happened before. You know, all this.
It's already happening. It's not that something in the future.
You know, with Oded Kotler and then Waxman.
I can feel it here. It's happening. Yeah. The self-censorship is happening. You know, even we're talking about Marina Abramovic maybe coming to the museum. But what works of art will? This is not the museum. The Tel Aviv Museum, at least not at this point, won't self-censor. But I can already feel that. But she has nudity. So how will the Israeli public? Now we're a strong enough institution to withhold, at least for now. But the small institutions, they can't afford it.
Yeah. They also, you know, but we just talked about this film, which is now out, and they had to change the poster, and it's not the first time. But you know, it's a distributor who changed the poster. So yeah, but in most countries, those kind of extreme stress and government pressure, we did produce great art. You know.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So that's what the film, The Plaza Before the Museum, tries to kind of touch upon. It does it in a very different style. It's a bit more maybe video arty in its feel. It's much less narrative than regular documentaries, and it tries to give a kind of overview about the connection between this specific plaza, the museum, and again, all these institutions, the outside world, all the different, many times you see there, for example, demonstrations, you're not really sure if they're from the right, from the left, and it doesn't really matter at some point. They're just all seems the same.
Yeah, it's wonderful that they host this kind of gathering of people to voice their ideas, you know, so you voice it in a different way. You can voice your voice, you know, through art and piece of a painting or through a video art, like you know, the museum shows a lot of video arts also. But then you can also, you know, you have to express what you think through demonstrations. So it's really fantastic area.
Tamar, an education for adult. What do you do? What do you include in adult education?
Well, we have First of all, we have our day-to-day, our bread and butter, which are the courses. We have many courses here for adults. This year we have, I think, almost 4,500 people coming each month to hear courses in different topics in art and see our exhibitions with guided tours and anything around that, either fashion, just regular courses. This is part of the job, and the other part is anything which has to do with programming at the museum. Either gallery talks, meetings with artists. This month, for example, we have a new exhibition. You're very welcome. If you haven't seen it yet, you have to come. About Marian, called My Name is Marian. Amazing exhibition about a Holocaust survivor artist. And the end of this month is the International Holocaust Day. So we're having a spoken word event. I'm not sure how it's going to go. Holocaust spoken word Marian event, but that, for example, is one of the projects we're doing. I don't know, we have really many things. We just had this huge weekend celebrating our 90th birthday, so that was part of those kind of things is the other part of my job.
It's a great museum. You have great shows and exhibition, and everybody's invited. Where can everybody see the movies?
We are going to have between the 9th and 11th of February. I'll start at the beginning. Next week, we're opening an exhibition here called, in Hebrew, Damienu Museum. I'm not sure how it's translated to English. Probably imagine a museum. It's a performance exhibition. It's going to be a month and a half of performance pieces. So again, everyone welcome. In the middle, between the 9th and the 11th of February, we're going to have a small mini film festival with documentaries about museums all over the world. And part of the mini festival will be these films as well. So that's one place which will take place really very, very soon. And I'm sure we're going to have screenings quite soon and maybe even put them in the galleries. And hopefully you'll be able to see them also in different places in Israel, not just here.
Oh, so you're not going to use TV, the platform, to show it?
We want to. We're trying to reach out to a few to Cannes, to some places. The Cinematheques.
In the beginning, I told Tzili, before I came, I was afraid it would be a promotions thing, and it was absolutely not. It was very engaging, very touching, and very enlightening. There was so much.
Very happy you enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, you should tell the
Excellent
people, everybody.
films.
We can tell Dorit.
I definitely will.
Unbelievable how in Shula and it's the people you gathered are really the top of the top. It's unbelievable.
They really are, and they all came with the best, with everything. They gave everything.
Yes.
Happy 90th birthday.
Happy 90th birthday.
Thank you. I feel young.
Everybody,
I hope we will reach this age like your mother.
My mother is more.
Is more. It's 92.
Her grandmother is even more.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh.
My grandmother is 90. Just had her 96th birthday.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Touch wood.
Tamari, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You, everybody.
It was really
Go to the museum.
Yeah, great.
Bye.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, everybody who came.